This clip is sponsored by Med Travelers. If you're an SLP interested in travel therapy, visit medtravelers.com to get started. What would be a couple of example goals that you would write for a student with AAC?
Oh, goals are tricky.
Yeah.
I just wrote 4 IEPs today and I kept thinking goals are tricky. I typically write as far as expressive language goals, and I guess they could be a receptive language goal as well. I like to word them as multimodal goals, which basically, to me and to my team, means that we are providing all different kinds of ways that students could communicate. So we're not pigeonholing them into only using their AAC device. They could use gestures, they could use vocalizations, they could use their AAC, they could use words, they could use all of it all together, because just like you and I, we don't talk in just one way. We don't communicate in just one way, right? So I'm obviously talking all over the place with my hands, and we use eye contact and we use gestures and pointing and reaching all the time. So we write goals that specifically say multimodal, but we definitely incorporate the phrase of given aided language stimulation or given aided language input. So everyone knows that that's their job, like that's the adult's job, that's the communication partner's job. You have to give them aided language input in order for them to be able to turn around and communicate via AAC or a multimodal approach to give back any kind of communication. And we kind of waver between percentage-based as well as number of times per day. And number of times per day, because the ESE teacher, when I write goals, the ESE teacher as well as the SLP are in charge of the implementation and the data tracking. So they know that it doesn't just, like, speech is not an isolated event. Language is not an isolated event. So it happens all day, every day. So we can do number of times per day that they initiate, number of times per day that they imitate. One resource that I like to use a lot when I write goals is the DAG2. It is the Dynamic Assessment of Goals Grid. So it's DAGG-2, and it's totally free. It was written and developed by Vicki Clark in conjunction with Toby Dynavox, and it breaks it into the 4 different competencies, or I don't think they're competencies. I think I'm misstating that, but linguistic, operational, and things like that. So it breaks it down into that, and it gives you ideas for based off of what your students are currently doing with their AAC or their communication. Here's a goal that you could write. Here's an idea of something you could implement into a goal that you could write for your students. So, but I think goals are an ever-changing, ever elusive thing that I just want to continually strive to get better at writing so that they're representative of my students and respectful of them and attainable for them without making it too easy. So I don't have a perfect answer for that. I wish that I did, but I've continuously every year changed a little bit of my wording to try and make it right. And I'm working my way towards that, but I welcome any advice and tips and strategies on that, because I'm ever learning about goals.
Well, and I think the fact that you write them as multimodal, I really love that, because that, I'm sure that anybody who gets your students after you also loves that, because it doesn't, like you said, you're exactly right. We don't communicate in one way. So why shouldn't they receive credit, for lack of a better word, for doing that? We want them to communicate. So
exactly,
if they're using another way besides their device, then wonderful. So exactly. I love that you do that. And also the suggestions for where to with the DAG is also, I think, would be